Hi, it's Kim again. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what planting close looks like, maybe some of the pros and cons to it. The biggest pro for me is, like I've said in previous videos, is that you don't really have to weed. So, starting at the beginning of this bed, you can see my super petunias are kind of almost look like they're growing out from under this lavender, Munstead lavender. I think I planted one in here, and that's kind of, how it's grown around that lavender. But I like that. It almost looks a little bit like the lavender has a little pink skirt to it. There are weeds in here. If you look close, we've got some clover. A big clover growing. We have some grass. So, I'm not saying it doesn't get any weeds for sure. Look at this big piece of grass. You can pull it out if you want. But pretty much it just doesn't show. You would really have to look closely like I am right now to see the weeds. So so this is a perennial. This has been here for probably 3 or 4 years now. I cut it back all the way to the ground in the spring. The spring is when the flower bed is the most work. And I planted this, like I say, this is an annual. This is a daylily, so that's a perennial that comes back every year. So I could probably get away with just the lavender and the daylily. But when spring comes and I see holes, I always get anxious that I'm not going to have enough flowers. It's not going to look full enough. So then I planted some seeds this year. Started some seeds in the winter. That's how I endure the winters here in Snowbelt Zone 4B. And so I planted some Rudbeckia green eyes, I believe they're called. And so wherever I saw holes, I stuck stuff in. I knew I wanted in this front bed to have dahlias that I had babied all winter. They are not an easy flower here in Zone 4B, let me tell you. Because they can't stay in the ground. You've got to dig up the tubers, store them over winter. They can't freeze. And we can get to minus 40. We only got as low as minus 17 Fahrenheit last year, but it does happen. It has happened. So you got to plan for that. This is a boxwood, and it is, of course, a shrub perennial. There actually is a hole down in there. You can't really see that hole. It does have some dying foliage from spring. It's got some daffodil foliage that's still down in there alive. Which is another thing about this bed. There are tulips, daffodils, spring bulbs in here underneath all this stuff. So that is one disadvantage that you may find a disadvantage when you're planting this heavy, is that you're gonna dig up some bulbs when you plant new stuff. That's a given. Happens all the time. Usually I just throw it back in the hole where I dug up the bulb. All right. So when I plant this heavy, these are all, so this is a dahlia that's not blooming in Here's a zinnia I planted from seed, also with the rudbeckia this winter. But when you plant this heavy, there is stuff that's underneath there that's going to kind of get lost. I really can't say as I've had anything die that I know of. These need to be trimmed back. They're done. They're the wee white hydrangeas. Some more rudbeckia green eyes. Love those for the size of the flower. The size of that flower is massive. And I just like the green eyes instead of the brown eyes. And I'm starting to get kind of the look I was going for here. I wanted this Verbena bonariensis, which is the purple flower that's tall. I planted that from seed too. It may come back. It may be a perennial. It did over in my other garden. It's just something I'm going to have to wait and see on. But I wanted other flowers to grow up in with it, like the rudbeckia is. I really did not intend for the rudbeckia to be the star flower. I really intended for the dahlias to be the stars of the show. But wow, this year, I'm telling you, I am not going to baby a dahlia all winter to get like 2 weeks worth of blooms in our zone. We'll see. I know I could plant them earlier in gallon pots and force them to bloom earlier, but I already do a ton of plants in the winter, a ton of seeds that I have to then harden off and bring out, and it's a lot of work. I mean, I probably did close to 1,000 plants this year in the winter. I think though you can see I planted this candy corn spirea. Seems to be liking life down there, all shrouded in by other plants. This dark leafed plant is that mahogany splendor hibiscus that is planted for its foliage, not for any flowers, is finally doing something. I don't know. It was just kind of short and lost in there forever, but now, and there is a rose back there that I transplanted. It's way in there. Just a little guy. Queen of Sweden. Buried. Sometimes the plants will actually grow taller because they'll reach for the sun, compete for sunlight with their neighbors. It's kind of like trees in the forest do the same thing. And somebody eventually wins. But I love that. I love the purple and the yellow. And of course my hydrangeas. We've had some massive thunderstorms though this past week that caused them to droop significantly, as you can see. So in the spring, I try to save room for the dahlias down in here. Here's another one, another one, another one. If I went around to the other side, you'd be able to see, well, there's a stick right down in there. That is my Stand By Me clematis that's done flowering. I also planted, I'm trying to propagate a hardy hibiscus. Let me see if we can go around to the other side and see where I stuck it in the ground. We can check it together, see if it's still alive. and if we can find it. There are also some daylilies, new daylilies. Sorry for the sun here. That right there, let me see if I can get closer, is a hardy hibiscus plant that I planted. I just took a cutting and stuck it in the ground, put some root grow on it and stuck it in the ground. It's been there for about a week and it hasn't died yet, so I guess that's a good sign. So we'll see if that comes up. That hopefully will just root in this year, and then next year it'll come back. We'll see. Maybe we'll see together. Yeah, so I also planted some new daylilies in here, but I have to be honest with you, I can't tell what's a new daylily, what's a weed, and what is dying. I'm assuming this, since it looks like it's dying, is daffodil dying. These in here would be daffodils dying. I think this is a new daylily that I planted last fall that came back. Now see, that's an instance where that daylily would probably be a couple inches taller if it got more sunlight. While I'm down here, these stalks right here go to this hardy hibiscus, the French vanilla. And then these stalks right down in there go to the second one. Now, that's two plants planted very close together. You got the stalks of this one and that one. Technically, those should never be planted that close together. They're both hardy hibiscus, French vanilla. I can look at the stats for you, but your typical hibiscus, hardy hibiscus, grows between 3 to 5 feet tall and 3 to 5 feet wide. So you can see that, and these are only the second year these plants have been here. And they're probably already, the one would be close to 3 feet. Typically, probably only one should be here. But the nice thing about that is that eventually, if they do outgrow their space, I've got another one of these to transplant somewhere else. And it's really nice when you're planting a garden to kind of repeat colors in blocks. So I'll find another home for one of these. We'll see, next year, year after. This one that I showed you that's down in there, the new one, is a dark leaf one because I'm trying to get a dark foliage plant here. But it needs sunlight to turn dark. And it also repeats that block of color with, not color, it repeats like the flower bloom type because it's a hardy hibiscus. So, and you can see like there are some spaces down in there, but not enough really for the sunlight to get in and give you weeds. And if it does, they typically don't show. Sorry, making you dizzy. There's a gladiola that's in there. Some more dahlias that are all annuals, because I am always experimenting with different colors in this bed. This is the bed we see the most. This is the one we walk by every day. So I like it to be full of color. I got a little planting experiment going on down here. I purchased some daylily seeds from a daylily auction. They're called bearded daylilies. It's a new type of daylily. So I've planted the seeds. I probably should have waited a couple weeks, but they're gonna have to probably be overwintered in the house. My basement's usually full of grow lights. There is another hardy hibiscus with the dark. That one's getting more sunlight, as you can see, so it's turning dark color. The only thing about that one is it hasn't flowered for me yet. It's only its second year. I have no idea what color the flowers are. But again, that's going to be a nice tall flower, 3 to 5 feet tall, dark color, again repeated down the line. So we'll go from the other side. There's another dahlia, still not flowering. I have like 3 dahlias that are flowering. Super annoying. I do have some gladiolas that are flowering. Had to stake them because of the thunderstorms, but they typically need to be staked anyway. These are they're supposed to be green, but they're kind of almost a green and orange, maybe? Green and peach? I know you either love or hate gladiolas. Some people consider them a funeral flower. I think they're one of the prettiest flowers out there, but they are very annoying in that they're hard to keep upright because they grow so tall. Around the other side of the bed, you'll see I got some Japanese beetles. I don't know if you can see that there. Ugh, I hate them. I normally would put it in some soapy water, but that's a quick, you're annoying me solution. Again, popped some more zinnias in, some more green eye rudbeckia, supertunias. Supertunias I bought off the Amish. Cheap. So if the Amish continue to sell them, I will probably plug in some of those annuals every year. It's guaranteed pop a color all summer. That's the thing about an annual versus a perennial. A perennial has a shorter flowering cycle than an annual, but a perennial comes back every year, whereas an annual is a one-shot deal. So if I back up a little bit, you can see that is eventually going to fill in that spot with a big dark foliage. Back up a little bit more. So that one is there. This is the French vanilla hardy hibiscus. And then that hole right there is where I'm hoping the other dark hardy hibiscus. So 3 hardy hibiscus spread apart and dark on each side. Now I change stuff around a lot. I do. So, like for instance, I just planted these agastache here so that we would have like the candy corn spirea that's down there. We'd have some more light yellow foliage. Light yellow, a lighter kind of yellow. And then another one right there. So it just kind of repeats, gives your eye almost a rest from sometimes what would be considered too much color. Although I don't know if that's possible. My catmint nepeta or nepeta, I had it trimmed way back to nice mounds, is already growing back and out of control. That's pretty much it. I just kind of want to, oh, I can show you over here too. This is a perfect example of when you plant stuff too close. So initially I plant stuff close because I want it to also look full. Like, not just to get rid of the weeds, but I want it to look like it's a little bit more mature planting. So this gold mound spirea was tiny when it was first planted, like that candy corn back there. But over the years, you can see how much it's grown. Well, I had this Millennium Allium, that Millennium Allium, and that one all planted underneath or right around it when it was little. Well, this year they were all completely buried. The first thing I did was to trim the gold mound spirea. And then after trimming and trimming and trimming and they still weren't unburied, I decided to move the plants. So I moved this one over here, and then I didn't really have room, so I moved the third one over there. But again, it repeats the flower and the color down the row to kind of keep guiding your eye. This hydrangea was tiny when it was first planted. So this year I had to unbury this My Monet Weigela. It was completely buried. The hydrangea actually came all the way out. By the time the flowers bloomed this year, it actually covered the Supertunia bubblegum too. So I cut a bunch of that away. And I took some of the plants out. I had 3 My Monet Weigelas, and I took 2 of them out. So, and like I showed you, there was these left over from the lily, stargazer lily that was there. I didn't even remember that stargazer lily was there. If it hadn't made it up through there and bloomed, I would have never remembered that it was planted there. So that is one disadvantage to planting stuff close. Some stuff does end up getting buried and lost. There's another one of those gladiolas that's not. It's only propped up by the dahlias. There's the best blooming dahlia this year so far. That's Arabian Night, this dark colored. Another dark-leaved hardy hibiscus. That one is Edge of Night. Second year. I eventually want it to fill in. My goal there is to bring this dark color from the maple tree down. Kind of repeat that color. And then, of course, the bird's nest for some evergreen. So there you have it. That's what it's like when planting close. Also, another thing I'd point out with planting close is that this spiky foliage is iris. some of your stuff, because it blooms really early in the season, like iris is like a June bloomer. And the tulips and everything, none of the other foliage is up yet. Especially, like, I wouldn't have planted the dahlias yet. Hydrangeas are slow to leaf out. So it's a lot easier for some of those, like the iris will, they got to flower before everything came in. So everything learns to grow together. My lemony lace that I planted, like that one's getting big already. Big difference. I planted some more Agastache there, which I think looks really pretty with the blue Stand By Me clematis drooping over top of it. That Agastache is a purple flower, but I planted those from seed in this past winter, so it hasn't flowered yet. Some of them have. Some of them in the other flower bed over there are flowering. I want to update you real quick on this window box. I just was kind of amazed at how much the ferns have popped up already. They were all this tight little clump, and they're popping up already. I have to say, though, I'm still not absolutely thrilled with that box. Can't even see the hosta right now. That's supposed to be the centerpiece. Well, it is what it is this year. That's the thing I love about gardening is I'm already thinking of things for next year. It's time to order fall bulbs, which I've already ordered a couple, but it's exciting. I don't want to see this year end, though. I never liked the winters here, but every year you get to try something new. Try again. I also trimmed this hydrangea because it was drooping really bad. It still is drooping really bad. But I like to be able to see the different layers, so I don't want the hydrangea laying on the plants underneath. The peonies are the next layer down, and then you've got the hydrangeas as the next layer down, and the brunnera. All right, I think that's it for this video. We'll see you again in the next one. Bye.